everyone. Welcome to this session, which is titled Improving the Safety and Social Skills of Teens and Young Adults with ASD and IDD During Times of Isolation. I'm Representative Jessica Benham, and I am thrilled to be your host for this session and for other sessions later in the day and tomorrow as well. Just as a reminder, we are not able to offer continuing education credits this go around. I just want to remind everybody of that because I know that there's been some questions. And at any point, if you have questions for our wonderful presenter, you can put them in the Q&A as well. So you'll find that down at the bottom of your screen. You see it's labeled Q&A. So feel free to make use of that. And with that, I want to introduce our wonderful presenter today, Rob Anderson. Rob is the Director of Training for the Healthy Relationships Curriculum, a program of Wesley Family Services. Rob's a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, where he obtained a master's degree in social work and has held a variety of positions in specialized education and therapeutic support. Since the curriculum was created, Rob has trained hundreds of teachers and counselors about the importance of teaching hygiene, health education, and relationships to special education students and adults using evidence-based instructional methods. I know that I'm thrilled to hear from Rob today. I'm sure all of you are as well. And so with that, I will hand it off to Rob.
Thank you very much. I'm very, excited and eager to be here as well today to be able to kind of talk about a few things that we think individuals with autism could really benefit from. On a personal note, before I get started, I just wanted to share that my sister has autism. She is currently 40 and a half years old. She's really excited when I share that half year mark. I'm not quite sure why she's so interested in going on to the next year to 41. She lives independently with her boyfriend in Boise, Idaho now. And I think when we graduated back in the mid 90s, there really weren't programs and lessons in schools and just how to really help people like my sister. So that's where we came together and put some resources together. And I'm really proud of all of the work that we and my colleagues have done over the years. I primarily work with individuals over the age of 12 and primarily in the high school years with those individual students here at Wesley Family Services, among others that I've helped over the years. And so today is just a small little snapshot of some of the things that have really helped improve the lives of the students that I've seen over the years, as well as my sister, as I have really tried to help shape her life as she gets older and more independent. When I was thinking about this presentation and exactly how best to capitalize on everything that's happened and changed, we do want to look at the improving the safety and social skills of teens and young adults during this pandemic time and time of isolation. But just this past weekend, as I was putting final touches on the presentation, I was out on a walk through the city here in Pittsburgh, and I recognized how many people safely are coming back into a sense of normalcy or coming back to being around one another at safe distances, but still trying to not be as isolated. And I thought to myself that the skills that we're talking about today to help improve those lives of isolation and those times that we have experienced, all of us, over the past 13 months, we're slowly moving back. And what is the transition going to look like for individuals that haven't seen each other for quite some time? So although that these can be utilized in times of isolation, I think that the lessons that we'll learn today and talk about will really help us motivate and encourage our individuals as we start to reopen to be able to have and fulfill those sort of life goals and become more independent as they move forward. So that's all my idea of adapting and heading back. There are many things that we do that we have to kind of learn in different stages. And it's been real interesting in the journey of the students and other individual clients that I've helped over the years, what it means for them and how they learn and how they grasp some of these more challenging topics. Like, I don't remember how I've learned some of them as I grew up. And so that's really where we want to break it down for the individuals that we work with and how they best can interpret where some of the pieces that we fill in. It's that gray area that all of us uncover, but for some that we work with, their lives really rotate more in a black and white. It's right or wrong. And how can we really help teach some of these skills to those individuals? So I really like to start today with our first idea when it comes to different ways to be able to engage and teach in the safety, and that's hygiene and cleanliness. I'll just be honest. My sister, when she graduated from Norwin High School, is where we went. She was accepted and enrolled and went for a semester and a half at Hiram G. Andrews, which is a great technical school outside of Johnstown, run by the Department of Labor, that many individuals with various needs go to learn certain skills. And my sister went and she had a great time. She did well pretty academically there. And she actually did even well socially, and her behaviors were really good. Where she struggled and how she ended up not being able to return her second semester was because she couldn't handle hygiene and cleanliness. There really wasn't much that we ever did with her as she was growing up about how to really help understand and value what this all means when it comes to hygiene and cleanliness. And so I think that that's a pivotal piece for our individuals as they try to get outside of isolation, as they try to build relationships, whether they be personal or professional. You really have to understand the needs of hygiene and cleanliness. And so there's a bunch of different approaches that we can do to this. And so that's really where I wanted to kind of break it down and showcase some of the areas that we talk to when it comes to how to teach individuals with ASD or IDD, really how to put these steps together. And the first is you're going to see here on the screen, and we're going to talk about these tried and true methods of visuals and videos and role plays, demonstrations, and step-by-step actions. And the first that we have, and you can find these sort of checklists and other different demonstrations that kind of put the orders together almost anywhere online. We've built these over time, and at the end of this presentation, I'm going to share with you a link where you're going to be able to find most of the resources that I show here on the screen. And this is a step-by-step process. We've taken this before and laminated it, cut it up into different pieces and passed it out and had our kids put it together to try to see if they can build on those steps. And as you see that this is a great way to be able to build through those pieces that maybe you and I take for granted from time to time. There's other ways that we can do this too, and that's through videos. I just want to pause for a moment here to watch a few of the video, or there's one video option for us here. So I'm going to bring this up on the screen and make it just a little bit bigger for all of us as well.
I am going to take a shower now so that I smell and look good. I shower every day. I have to get everything I need. I'll put the things I need in the shower so they're easy to get to. Now, I'll turn on the water and adjust it so it's just the right temperature. I'll take off my clothes and fold them neatly. I'll turn on the shower and make sure it's not too hot and not too cold. The water is just the right temperature. I better be careful getting in. I need to get all wet. First, I'll shampoo my hair. I only need to use a small amount of shampoo. I can scrub my scalp and clean my fingernails at the same time. It's important to get all of the soap out of my hair so my hair looks shiny and clean. Next, I'll wash my body with some body wash. I need to wash my whole body, including my feet. Now, I need to rinse off all the suds. I'm all done showering, so I'll turn off the water. I have to dry off my entire body, as well as my hair. Can't forget to dry my feet. Don't want to slip when I get out. Be careful getting out of the shower. I'll hang up my towel so that the bathroom stays neat. Now I'll apply some deodorant, and then I'll get dressed and comb my hair. Looks good.
So that's just one example of what it is to kind of put those steps together when it comes to teaching hygiene and how to do it. And everyone has different routines and pieces that come together as we are trying to get from being dirty to being clean. And so it leads me to think of a few other examples and ways that we've been able to teach some of the individuals that we work with here on what it means to take a shower. First, we have a lot of different products that we bring to the school here to be able to really showcase what these are. And I think to myself, and this is just going to be a funny story about me personally, when I teach this to the kids here at the high school, is that when I was about 10 years old, I was using, getting a shower in the back. And my mom asked me, she goes, "What are you using to wash your hair?" And I said, "I don't know, the stuff in the back." And my mom, being my mom, she's like, "No, like, what exactly are you using?" And I was like, "I don't know, the bottle back there with the pump on it." And she said, "Well, what does it say?" And I said, "It says Summer's Eve." And my mom said, "Stop using that one." And I remember saying to her, "Why?" And my mom's like, "Just stop using it." And so I was curious, and I went and I read the back of the Summer's Eve bottle, and I realized that it wasn't made for people like me. And so I had an opportunity to learn that I should not use that product based on the opportunity of what I was reading. And for our students and for those that we work with, it's some of those pieces that, do they know the difference between shampoo and conditioner? So that's really where we come up with all the products we have here. We have deodorants, both spray and gel, the different types of shampoos and things like that. Even to the point that I'll teach the kids and clients that I have, when you get the shampoo that's almost towards the bottom, as this one is, how do you get the rest of it out? You don't want to shake it all over the shower because it could fall and slip on the ground, and that could make you a slippery surface. So slightly tapping it on the top or bottom of our hand, but also teaching that when we open it up, we got to be real careful because we don't want it to go out all over the place and get all over the floor or all over us as we're trying to put the right amount into our hair. Now, if we have students that maybe haven't washed their hair for quite some time, does that mean that they need to use a lot of shampoo? So I've demonstrated here, if I have a lot of hair, is that the amount of shampoo I should use? Even in the time of COVID, when we were teaching these things more remotely with our clients and students, we were able to utilize the video features that I'm using right here with you to be able to continue to teach some of these efforts as we want to showcase what the exact amount should be and how much is the right amount for our hair and for how we're trying to get ready. So I've had students in the past say, "That's way too much. So you need to use a quarter or a nickel." So if I try to do this the right way, I can show you the amount that's on here now. And is that correct? Now what do I do with it? We have to teach that we might need to rub it between our hands and rub it between our hair. Now, you and I probably all have different techniques when it comes to taking a shower or the routines that we have in the morning. And that's all okay. And for anyone that we work with, there are going to be different routines and different methods for them to be able to use. But how have we taken the opportunity to really talk and think through how they've learned these things in the past? And so one of the other methods that we use here specifically to kind of teach some of these lessons with our kids, and I'm going to bring up an example of a classroom that I have had from several years ago. So bear with me one second while I bring this up. This is a class, and we don't need sound for this. What you're going to see is that I drew on our whiteboard a shower head, and I'm trying to simulate what it means to take a shower in a safe environment. So I haven't taken my clothes off. However, prior to teaching this lesson, I did have a sweater on. And so when I went to go into the shower, I took my sweater off to be able to kind of demonstrate what it meant to get in a shower. You're going to see along the shelf there, the kids have helped me identify some of the products that I need to be able to get clean. Here, I'm talking about how if I lightly scratch the scalp or my head as I wash, if my fingernails were cut, I can probably keep them clean underneath. So I ask all of us here on the call to take a moment to think, how did we learn to take a shower? I have no recollection of this process whatsoever. However, I think I do it pretty well. I try to take one today, and I do every day. And I think that overall, I do a pretty decent job at this. So sometime between the ages of 3 and 7, I probably learned these skills. And that meant that I was watching my parents or watching those that took care of me, just kind of simulating the actions about how that they were even bathing me in the kitchen sink when I was a little kid. I probably was subconsciously paying attention. And so as I aged and got older and wanted more independence in those, 7, 8, 9-year-old years, I started to kind of do the same things that my parents have done over time. But I know for individuals that we work with that have some developmental delays, that just means that their development has been slightly delayed. And so they can't learn the same times, chronological ages sometimes that we can. So between the ages of 3 and 7, some of the individuals that we have worked with, they may be developmentally delayed when they're younger than that 3 to 7 year. But as they get older, as you can see with this group of kids, we can then, their cognitive and developmental age also can increase. And that is when we typically say to teenagers and young adults, take a shower. But we're just assuming that they understand what that process means to take a shower, instead of taking the time out to really demonstrate what all of the different pieces that go into what we take for granted and we do each day as we go through our morning routine. And that can even come down to situations like how much deodorant and how to use deodorant. And so as we have here, as you can see that I have is a spray can of deodorant. And from this, we have been able to showcase our kids today, how far away should they go? Should they spray it all over the place like this as they're trying to get clean, or do they get real close and spray? The other piece that we've seen here is as we teach some of our students, we have to be very explicit about the fact that Mr. Anderson would be spraying his deodorant without a shirt on. And so this demonstration was only to show where the bottle is supposed to be and how my motion is supposed to be when spraying. But we have to also do the other pit as well too. There's all of these different pieces that I think that you and I and others that just get ready some bit unconsciously every day take for granted, that our kids and those clients and the young adults that we work with just need a little bit of assistance. And once they see it in some cases or repetitively see it, they'll be more or less able to maybe do some of these functions. Another piece is I've had kids that say that they use deodorant. So I've asked them, how do you use it? And so they take the gel deodorant just like I have, they pull the cap off and they rub it on. What's the piece that's missing from that? The fact that they haven't done anything by cranking it up from the bottom. There's no deodorant up here on the top of the deodorant lid or the package. So what do we have to do? We have to crank it up just a little bit to be able to get enough deodorant up there so I can wipe it on one side of my pit. And from that, when on the other side, there's still no deodorant. I just put it on my one pit. So now I got to do it on my other. So I need to crank that up. And now I got to wipe it on my other pit on the other side. These are the things that somehow we all learned growing up. And sometimes we were taught how to do some of these things because we explicitly asked questions, or our parents or caregivers gave us the opportunity to learn. And maybe we picked up on them quicker, and maybe sometimes we needed more advice and more time to be able to go through some of these elements as we move forward to learn about how these things really affect us when it comes to hygiene. When we also think about hygiene, it's really what drives us to be able to have those relationships and get closer to one another and more people. And so another option that you may want to consider beyond the visuals is what we consider here in our consistency. You know, is there repetition? Are we really holding the same ideas and concepts on a more repetitive basis, which we also know works well with our students? Oops, excuse me here. Let me switch over to what I mean by consistent repetition. We offer showering and bathing checklists that we've worked with our clients here that they fill out daily so that they have an understanding that these are the steps they need to do. Over time, this has really helped build some of those levels of understanding and comprehension about how to do these things more independently. During the times that I've had to work with my sister, I've helped her through these levels, where we would collect these sheets every day. So we could see her increasingly get more independent by taking care of her hygiene so that she could go out and do other things as she was out into the society once she was let go and could no longer attend Hiram G. Andrews. So other pieces that we have here is step-by-step action. So you have some ability to be able to think about what some of this stuff is when we talk about step-by-step. And what I want to showcase here just for a second is moving on to some safety that I think some of us may not think about all the time, and it's how we act in the men's bathroom. And I know that for many of our students here, we have issues with kids dropping their pants at the urinals as they get older, or just the differences in how we really interact. And there really is a big difference between how women act in the women's bathroom and how men act in their bathroom. And most of us only have experience in the gender that we identify with, bathroom. And so for us to know what happens in the other is sometimes challenging, especially when we have to teach some of our students and clients that are identify as the other gender of how it's supposed to act like in their bathroom. You know, just on another side note, there's probably no place that's different in our society between a men's bathroom and a women's bathroom. In the 42 years I've been alive, I've never had a guy ask me a question in the bathroom, or some guy say to me before out in the hallway, like, let's go have this conversation in the bathroom. That has never happened, but women do it all the time. And there's a safety element behind this that we really want to help and work with our clients and our students and our boys and our young men as they get older. But there is no real talking in the men's bathroom. And that leads me to this example that I wanted to showcase when it comes to the bathroom etiquette one here. Share my screen.
How's it going, bud? You know that weather chick, she's pretty hot, eh?
Hey man, mind your own business.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to make good company conversation. Oh.
Man, it's weird when you're talking to somebody in the bathroom. What's wrong with him?
No, what a jerk. Just trying to be friendly.
Again, for the individuals that may be on the call that utilize the men's bathroom, that we don't know that is not something that typically happens in the bathroom. But I've had clients and students before that have gone in the bathroom and been asked questions, like, are you with anybody? Or how much money do you have in your wallet? Or let me see your phone. And so it's really important, I think, to be able to talk to our clients and our kids about the importance of not talking in the bathroom. So I teach the students here that if somebody talks to you in the men's bathroom, you can say, hey, I don't want to talk in the bathroom. I'd rather wait till we get outside. Because again, in my entire life, there's never been an opportunity where the conversation I had to have had happen needed to be done in the men's bathroom. It's safe to have that same conversation outside when I'm around other people and may be able to get help from other people. So again, if a person continues to talk with me at the bathroom, I may say to that person, like, hey, I told you that I didn't want to talk in the bathroom. And if I can, let's talk outside, or I'm going to go get help. It's a big safety concern, I think, for a lot of families and parents as their boys get older and turn into young men, about having them go into the bathroom alone and not necessarily understanding some of these social norms, as I like to call them, or what's going to be expected from them in the bathroom as they get older and start doing things more independently. Furthermore, one of the things that we talk about here from a safety perspective with some of our kids as well is this idea when it comes to different types of toilets. And so again, we think of the bathroom as having urinals and having stalls. And so what if we had some other options that we need to talk about? In the men's restroom, there are. And I'm just sharing these briefly for the safety element of what that means. Up in the top right-hand corner, for most people, they may see that as a bank of urinals against the gray background. I use that one with my students to talk to them about the idea that there are restrooms out there that are waterless. That means they have no water that goes to them whatsoever, causing them to maybe get confused if we've now told them that they have to flush the toilet every time they go to the bathroom. These ones just don't have that. They're eco-friendly. They're all over the Pennsylvania Turnpike. They're all over the other interstates throughout our country. They're at the mall. They're at restaurants. And so we might have some of our students and kids get stuck because they think that they might get in trouble because this toilet can't flush and they have to flush every toilet. So just simply having a conversation about what it means and the different types of toilets that are out there. Some of the sporting venues that are out there have the troughs that you see down the bottom. There's no rhyme or reason to those troughs. There's no lines. This is what causes the men's bathroom to be relatively quick in and out, because we're all kind of going to the bathroom in some sort of steel container that we feed farm animals out of. So this idea, again, is just trying to make sure that we can talk with our individuals and clients and students that we work with about what's going to be expected and what happens when they hit into something that they've not seen before. Who can they turn to have a safe conversation about what's to do in these situations? This is also another slide I use a lot of times with the students here to talk about the safety of not dropping their pants at the urinal and where that they need to be as they get closer to the urinal. Now you'll notice that there's 4 different stances. The guy on the right, sometimes in that orange, I crop out of the picture because he is looking up. That's an appropriate stance that you can do at a urinal. But some of our kids have some aiming issues, so I don't necessarily always want to show that one. The one in the green plaids to his left, looking straight ahead. The one in the burgundy looking down. The guy on the far left, I've had students say it's kind of gross because his hand is near his face and it's dirty in the bathroom. Gives me a great opportunity to be able to talk a little bit about that, because it is a dirty environment. But also notice how close they are, where their pants are, and things like that. So how can we teach some of these elements with our students as well, or our clients as well, about what it means to drop the pants? And we've had multiple issues sometimes here at our school about this happening. So how can I teach this safely? So I can pull up this picture of some urinals that you'll see here on the screen and talk to my students utilizing a simple thing of gym shorts. So here in the school, I can have a pair of gym shorts that I have right here, and I can just pull them on over the pants that I have. And so then safely, I can teach what it means for kids when they go to the urinal or they have to use the bathroom, where their pants should be. So if I go like, oh, I really have to go to the bathroom, and I run and I try to pull them the whole way down, I can safely, without exposing myself, teach the actual physical idea of exactly where your pants should be and how you can adjust and unbutton or things like that, simply just by putting a pair of pants on over my regular pants. Giving kids another visual to be able to understand, and a more demonstration and or role play of what it means to be able to do these things effectively and safely. Another option too that we talk about sometimes here at the school is how to really teach when it comes to hygienic going to the bathroom and wiping ourselves, or utilizing those sort of things as kids get older. One thing, again, how did we learn some of these techniques that we have here over the time as we gotten older? And so I simply just take two balloons. Some of you may have seen these on some different platforms and different types of websites for helping individuals with autism or other various needs. This has a lot of help for me, because when we think about what it means to teach somebody how to wipe, or we tell them, did you wipe your butt? And we've had students here a lot of times say, yeah, I wipe my butt. So I give them a piece of toilet paper and I ask them, can you show on here where you wipe? And a lot of times I have kids that just wipe on the cheek. And that's one of the reasons why their hygiene is poor, because they haven't learned, or we taught them at a point that they couldn't retain that information of how necessarily to wipe, where we mean for them to wipe. Just another option to kind of think of. The idea behind all of this is truly trying to embrace the idea of visuals, videos, role plays, taking concepts as closely related to the actual thing as we want to, and be able to teach those and utilize those to be able to work with our students so that they can learn the necessary skills that you and I all learn over time as we've gotten older. And my sister has said to me on multiple occasions, like, why didn't anybody just teach me how to do this, or just tell me about this? And I think a lot of times that comes down to this idea that we take it for granted that everyone knows some of these pieces. And so we just take time to be able to break it down in a systematic approach with our students and our clients and our kids. There's a really good chance that they might be able to learn and retain this information over time. And so that brings me down to just thinking about when we talk about areas to keep our rooms clean, or our area that we might be doing schoolwork at home. How can we really work with our students on those particular elements as well too? We found that checklists work well, and we found that making it into small little segments works real well. For instance, if I want to work with a family on a student cleaning their room or their kid cleaning their room, maybe I'm just going to start with the top of the dresser, or start with the top of the nightstand. Make it simple, make it easy, and then build upon that success once I get pieces of that cleaned up. And maybe that takes me a week to just have the nightstand cleaned every day in the morning, or the dresser cleaned every day in the morning. And then I can move on from that. I think that sometimes we just try to go in and have everything cleaned, or we just go in with this idea that everything needs to be fixed or look presentable. And I think if we start with smaller individual approaches, we have a better chance to being able to get to a bigger picture, even though that it may take some time along the journey of working with our individuals that we serve. And so that leads me to this idea of what it means to have that checklist. Another example of just what that is a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday sort of checklist. You can make these up as you find necessary, whether this mean organization of your schoolroom or school space or book bag or whatever the case may be, and offering some bit of progressive rewards as we move forward with these. Maybe these become chores, and at the end of the week that there is some sort of positive reinforcement. Those are the areas that we have found work really well when we're talking with our individuals here at the school, by building some sort of checklists and making them specific and unique to the individual needs that we have with our students and our clients that we serve here. The next piece here is going to move into some other safety techniques, and that's staying safe online. And that's a big one. And what we had back in March 13th of 2020, when all the schools shut down across the state and many of the other states too, we went from having our kids go to brick and mortar schools to really having them being stuck at home. And how can we make sure that we can keep our kids in that area being safe? So a lot of these ideas are going to be, again, focused on visuals, videos, role plays, demonstrations, and again, this idea of doing it over and over again until the clarity is there. And so we chose a visual for some of our kids here, especially some of our younger kids, to start someplace. And so what you see here is a simple traffic light poster. When we made this poster years ago, we understood that we couldn't create a brand new visual, because if we did that, there may be confusion. And the first thing we'd have to do is teach what the visual was supposed to represent, and then really hope that the individual we were utilizing the visual for understood the concept. Because if they didn't understand what the visual was supposed to represent, then there'd be really no way that we could build or teach off of that. So we chose the traffic light because we truly think that most individuals understand the functionality of a traffic light. So green, go, yellow, slow, red, stop. And so can we build upon that as the kids get older? And can we start with this idea of what it means to have this traffic light? So green can represent a friend, yellow can represent an acquaintance, and red can represent a bully or somebody we don't know. But green can also represent other things, and yellow can represent other things, and red can represent other things. But if we can keep the consistency that all things that are safe, are trusting, and that are friendly are green, things that we need to know more stuff about are yellow, and things that are bad or things that could hurt us or things that we don't know are more in that red. If we can start the structure by building it that way, we found some great success to be able to expand upon that. And so what I mean by expanding upon that is this idea of building upon understood concepts. So what you see here is taking the same traffic light, but now broadening it out, expanding it on what we call a relationship range. So that green area is still at the very bottom, that hash mark can still represent whatever green is to represent. Yellow in the middle can represent
believe I lost.
And the red up there at the very top can represent what it means to have the whatever red's supposed to represent in the traffic light as well too. I've been able to utilize this with my students as they've gotten older, because we all know that relationships don't just hit in a green, in a yellow, and a red. There's a lot of fluidity, a lot of ebb and flow in relationships. For instance, when we all meet each other, we all become acquaintances. And then based on those interactions as we go through, the times that we spend in our conversations, we either stay acquaintances or we become closer friends, maybe even a best friend. We also know that friendships don't last forever. And so sometimes we could have a best friend for our whole life, but sometimes they move backwards to an acquaintance. And if, as the counselor here, how do I explain who I am? I'm not the friends, I'm not green, and I'm not yellow because I'm not an acquaintance. But the hash marks on the right give that opportunity to be able to really work with where I'm at. So again, green being friend, and the middle being acquaintance. Maybe I'm someplace here in the middle. So you can take this idea of this expanded range, utilizing the same color temperatures of the green, yellow, and red, and make it specific to what it is that the individual that we're working with needs. So this is just an example. You can take this for multiple different ideas that you may think about. But when we first meet somebody, we're probably up more in the red area. So that's what I have the arrow kind of pointing up towards there. And then we have some interactions. We talk to this person a few times. We still don't know much about them, but it moves us down to the orangish red area. And then we now talk to them for a month. And you know, if we talk to them a lot, then maybe it's less than a month, or maybe it's exactly around a month. But notice that even at the month time, I'm not really recognizing this person as a best friend or a close friend, because again, we don't know them that well. This happens with all of us as well. And so now, you know, moving down further, we like many of the same things, and they are becoming a better friend. And so now we're getting into the greenish yellow. And then towards the bottom, after talking with them and getting to know them for several months, they're becoming a close friend. And then we even have best friend. But notice that best friend's not even the whole way down there at the bottom. because for some of our individuals that would like to have intimate relationships or start dating someone, maybe dating could be something we would put down there at the very bottom to really showcase how important it is to get to know that person and the time that we spend with them and the interactions. So this is something that we've utilized here for multiple things. I've been able to explain in-person friendships versus social media friendships utilizing this range, talking about close coworkers versus regular coworkers. Just because you work with somebody all the time doesn't mean that they become a necessarily close coworker. It's just over those interactions. Notice on the right-hand column here, when we first meet somebody, I have listed, and I'll make it bigger so we can see, I have it listed so it says, family and my other friends know that I met this new person. Giving an opportunity.
Hey, yeah. Do you see something on your toolbar that says something about live transcription?
I do not.
Mm-hmm.
Am I still looking for that? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have anything on mine either. It's typically down at the bottom alongside like the Q&A, chat, etc. area. It has to be enabled on the Zoom website in settings.
Do not have this up.
Can I keep going, or you want me?
Live transcript thing.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. And can you, when you click on it, what does it say? Can you enable it?
Assign participant to type. I will type. Copy the API token. Enable auto transcription.
Okay. Enable auto transcription. Can you do that?
Yep.
And can you, I had to go change settings.
You know you're on. You're not muted.
Okay, it has showed up at the bottom now, so I think we're probably good to go, Rob, if you want to continue.
Okay, thank you. And so what you see in that right-hand spot is that I do also want to point out with my clients and my students about the fact that we've talked about these people that have come into our lives so that they're not secret, and that we make sure that others around us know who we are in, talking with, and making sure that we're not being taken advantage of, to have another element of safety when it comes to having those times online. I can go back just to another video example, something that we utilize here to talk with our students about if they receive emails and really how to think it through. So I just want to showcase this for a moment.
I really want to help because I like donating to the food bank. I wonder how much money I can give. Wait, I think I remember someone telling me that I need to check before I send any money. People always ask for money all the time. I better do some more research to make sure this isn't a scam. First, I should talk to somebody I trust to see if this is real before I do anything else. If I continue, I might never get my money back.
Again, just having these simple conversations to be able to talk about these things with our students and clients and those that we work with, just so that they understand that people could take advantage of them online and what it means to have that online friendship. One other thing that I'd like to show, another way that we use the relationship range here, so I'm just going to pull up the real poster here for a second, just so I can show in real time. We've had students before that have met people online that have asked them for things like money, or like, I'll be your friend if you send me $50. And we want to make sure that we can teach those elements of it. So it's easy for us to say that that person on the other end is not real, or whatever the case may be. But a lot of times that's not necessarily accurate, because there is somebody on the other end talking. They're just up to no good, or they're trying to take advantage of those that we work with. So what I've done in the past is kids have come in and they've said that they've met somebody online. So in order to understand if this person's real, I might start up here and ask some information like first name, last name, hair color, birth date, the relative information that you can get easily just by having a profile on Facebook or Instagram. But when they don't know the answer to a question that would be relatively well known by most people that would have friendships, we would move back up here to the top. So we go back and forth and back and forth. And the goal ultimately would be to get down here to recognize that person as being real. We've had to do this multiple different times in different ways. And then we've had times where the student has really thought about the questions, and during the grooming stage online, they've asked the person on the other end of those questions, so they come prepared to answer them. So I've had to get a little creative with with my questions, just so I don't, and if they do become green, that's outstanding. But I really want our kids to start thinking about how to really know who somebody really is. Another option that we talk about sometimes here and utilize as a visual element for us is how to really understand the expectations, what it means when it comes to the give and take of relationships, or when we get back in front of other people, how it means that we should have this back and forth. And that's where this balance scale comes in. And it's just a typical scale that you've seen before. You know, we put too much weight on one side, the other side will stand up. And so one of the things that we do here is how to teach appropriate small talk or interactions with people. So I may have a student that comes into class and I say, hey, Zach, and he says, hey, Mr. Anderson, and I say, how are you? And he says, good, and sits down. And he may look at me and be like, why is the scale unbalanced? I answered your question. And I might say, you know, Zach, yeah, you did. You answered my question, but I asked how you were. All right, we said hi and you said hi. And then I asked how you were and you said good. You think there's anything that maybe I want you to say to me? And he might be like, how you are? Yeah, like ask me that question back. That give and take, that balance that we have here. And to be able to build on that over time, I might keep the scale like this. And the next time I have an interaction with that kid, I might say, hey, Zach, and he might say, hey, Mr. Anderson. I might say, how are you? And he's like, good, how are you? And I could say, hey, Zach, that's great. You remembered this from last time. I really appreciate it. Again, the next time I see the individual, same thing. Hey, Mr. Anderson. Hi, Zach. How are you? Good. How are you? All these times you're remembering to do it. And then I might be able to offer something a little bit more like, hey, Zach. Hey, Mr. Anderson. How are you? Good. How are you? Good. What you do last night, Zach? Played video games. And he sits down. And I might go, and Zach would be like, what did you do last night? Now, in the particular element of it, I don't really think Zach cares too much what I did last night or even how he's doing. But what I'm trying to teach here at the very first step is that there's something that is needed to be expected. And that gives me an opportunity to help and work with the individual on how to fill that piece in. So the idea here when we talk about those with individuals is a lot of times we just want to show them or tell them what they need to do. Could we first start by telling them where the spot is that it needs to be interjected or why that happens to be? And this is where this balance scale comes in handy. It has helped me be able to work with individuals that may say hi to me every time they see me, even though I've already said hi to them the first time of that day, or how to be able to build conversation. So they have a bucket of weights and I have a bucket of weights, and we kind of just go back and forth. And so this has really helped when I've worked with parents about trying to build the balance at home and more of a visual element as well too, to showcase those expectations as our kids move and become more independent as they get older. Now, a lot of what I talked about today had a numerous amount of videos and visuals, and I kind of just want to speak briefly about where you can find some of these resources in case you'd like to use some of them on your own. And that's going to be over here at healthyrelationshipscurriculum.org, but our free lessons page is really what I want to go towards. And what you're going to see here is about 21, I think, lessons that my colleague Kristen Ober and I have shot back right before, right when COVID was starting. There's all kinds of different common chores in here, taking care of pets, keeping my area clean, other hygiene ones in here. These are just simple teaching lessons that you can watch for free with your kids or your clients to be able to really kind of work and focus on those. And then also in each of these lessons is a little bit of a lesson plan and some other visuals like I showed here today, some of the traffic lights and relationship range posters and all of those particular elements. So it gives us another opportunity to continue the learning past this presentation today. And with that, I think that I'm right around the time of 45 minutes. So I just want to pause and open it up for questions and thoughts.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation today, Rob. And I know we have some questions. I do think some of them you answered already. Folks did want to know how to access those videos, which I think is great. But I'll open up with a question for me, because I have to say, as an autistic person myself, the extended greeting rituals that non-autistic people engage in are fascinating to me. This idea that a hello does not suffice, that we must say, how are you, good or fine, when maybe we aren't good or fine, is just so very interesting to me. And a lot of what you're talking about is teaching autistic people or other folks with developmental or intellectual disabilities how to cross that divide to help neurotypical people feel more comfortable with the interaction. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit on how neurotypical people or non-autistic people can meet us in the middle, can move toward ways that they can interact with folks who are autistic or otherwise developmentally disabled in ways that will make the person with a developmental disability or an intellectual disability more comfortable.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I had a student one time ask me, why do we have to do small talk? And I thought about it, and I have absolutely no idea why. It's just one of those things that we've kind of adopted as a society that is kind of expected to talk about the weather or whatever the case may be, or that small talk or those, subtle conversations that we have when we first run into somebody, like you had said, like, how are you doing? And the response always is good, even though we may not be. The same kid, when I said that I didn't know about small talk or why we had to do it other than we had to, because it was just something that was slightly polite and kind of expected, he then asked me, then why don't we do it in elevators? And so I think a lot of the situations that we do, we don't really quite understand, even in the even the individuals that don't have a diagnosis. Well, I'm not sure. And that's one of the best parts about working with the students, is because they really do ask the questions that I probably should be asking myself. We had another student here that has since graduated and got a job, and she wanted to keep to herself. She didn't really like that small talk around the office. And so we had a conversation, and she did get along well with her boss. And we said, you can just say politely to your boss, I like to say hi in the morning, but other than that, I really don't want to talk much more. I want to get right to my work. That's what I'm here to do. Please don't think I'm being rude by not wanting to engage with you, but I just kind of like to keep to myself. Would that be okay? And that seemed to work with that one specific instance. Now, I think that the individuals that are out there in society are going to have to recognize that they may want to have a lot of small chit chat. We have people here around the school in the office that constantly want to interrupt me, and I just want to get done with my work. And so politely saying to some people like, hey, I just really like to keep to myself in the morning. And if I'm interested in seeing how your plans for the weekend, I'll come up and ask you if that's okay. And giving the permission back to the other person to say, yes, that's fine, sometimes will help individuals that don't necessarily want to be asked every single day how they're doing. So I hope that might answer your question when it comes to that. Those are some of the things that we've used here in the past.
Oh, I think that makes a lot of sense. I have a master's degree and I'm almost done with my PhD in communication. And I always say I studied the thing that I did not inherently pick up, that I did not inherently understand, which was the way that neurotypical people communicate, which is, as you said, illogical and oftentimes without reason. And so it's fascinating to me to think about ways in which we can kind of meet in the middle on that communication gap. Let's see. We had another person who commented about the importance of making sure that instructions are incredibly detailed and specific. And I'm wondering if you could expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that is absolutely right. I mean, I only had a short period of time of 45 minutes to kind of go through these, and I was at a pretty high level overview. For instance, that relationship range poster that I hung up and was talking about if somebody online is real. The situation that we had here that I worked with a student took me 8 months to go through that relationship range poster almost daily with new individuals that they had met or others that they were coming in contact with, before any of that information really rooted in to understand more in a generalized sort of way. Another piece when we think about taking showers or being hygienically clean and whatever that happens to be for that individual is, instead of encompassing it all at the same time about what it means to take a shower, maybe you start by, what do we use shampoo for? And we stop with that. And the next day, maybe what do we use soap for? And we stop with that. And we build upon those over a period of time. But the details are very important. If you recall, when I had showed about the deodorant, we've had it where I'm demonstrating. And for maybe most of us that would be here in the school, they would know that I should do this without my shirt on. But if I'm not incredibly clear about that, we could have students and others that we're working with tell us that they're using deodorant, but they're spraying it on top of their shirt. So yes, the detailed pieces are incredibly important, to the point where I think that sometimes we as professionals don't ask the right question. So for instance, when I was learning from some of my students how they take a shower, they stay clean, we asked them to walk through that step. And we had a student that said, I put shampoo in my hand and put it in my hair. We were like, did you go into the bathroom? And he was like, yeah. And we're like, did you take your clothes off? He's like, yes. And then said, did you get wet? And he said, no. Why would I do that? I stand the way back of the shower. I put shampoo in my hand. I put it in my hair. And he was putting shampoo into his dry hair because how do we teach him to wash his hands? Turn the faucet on, pump soap into your dry hands, lather them up under the faucet for 20 seconds, dry off. He was generalizing both to be the same. All we had to do, and it did take time, we had to say you have to wet your hair first, products, and rinse. But that piece, if we just let him say, I put shampoo in my hand and put it in my hair, and we didn't back up enough, we would have missed that critical piece of what the individual is doing that they thought was right. And there's no reason that they wouldn't have thought that that was the right way to do it.
Oh, absolutely. I think those kinds of details are really critical. Somebody else asked if you know about youth groups for teens with autism.
Yeah, there's a number of different social skills and programs that are offered by a lot of different agencies around here in the area. I can't speak specifically on any of the ones that may be beyond a behavioral health organization, but I do know that I have colleagues and other friends that are members of Facebook groups that are sometimes private and public, that there's opportunities that exist for sure to be able to kind of engage in those moments where they can practice these skills in real time. I would also suggest if you do get enrolled in a youth group or some sort of functionality where individuals can meet, is to make sure that if there's still time afterwards, when maybe it's your son or daughter comes home from it, that you practice some of these, because it's going to take time, and it may not be the same exact situation that happened in that youth group or social skills group will not happen someplace else. And again, we'll generalize that those both mean the same thing. But for our individuals that we work with, that because it's a new setting, a new place, a new person, could mean that it doesn't have any relevance to the actual skill that we learned at the social skills group. So if you can find out what they did in the group and then try to take that information and expand on it in different settings, that was very helpful. For instance, if I see my kids here engaging in small talk, I'm going to make sure that I sometimes, not in the middle of it, but after they're done engaging, say to them like, hey, guess what, John? What you just did, that's small talk. I know we don't acknowledge things like that, but I want to recognize that at that time, at that space where that kid may not think they're doing small talk, I'm going to put a label to it to say that that is small talk. I'm really proud that you were doing that, but also kind of showcase in real time what that happens to look like. So if you happen to be at the mall, or if you happen to be at the grocery store, or you happen to be at a friend's house, and you see a skill that you really want your child
There we go. You see a skill that you.
Oh, we cannot hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Just take some time to be able to identify that they did it, and that positive reinforcement goes such a long way.
Absolutely. So I think a bunch of folks would like, if possible, for you to put that website with the videos, like copy the URL into the chat. So if you could do that. There we go.
Here, and I will put it also in the chat as well too.
Fantastic. And then once you're done with that, somebody would like to know, it seems like a lot of this is geared toward young people and toward children. What are your thoughts on ensuring that adults who may not have had this kind of really detailed training as a young person, how do we help those folks succeed?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest, that would be my sister, hands down. She's 40 and a half years old. And so she lives in Boise, Idaho, all by herself. And I think that she missed out on these, to be quite honest with you. So I think that my recommendation for her is, because it's really important to make sure she can find a trusted individual that she may be near. I ask her if she and I have a really good relationship. So I ask her to run that person past me, just so I have a better feeling. And we go through some of the exercises that I did today with the relationship range poster with her. She has the independence and the rights to pick the friendships that she'd like to have, however. So I want to be very, understanding of that as well too. But I do think that if you're older and you're looking for this, there are people out there in your life that you do trust. And sometimes just having an open conversation that you don't understand how something works or how certain things are expected with that person, and tell them that it's a part of me that I need some help with. Would you mind helping me? Would be really helpful when it comes to that particular element. So my hope would be that we could find somebody we trust, and somebody that we can rely on that will be there. It doesn't need to be a sibling or a family member, although that's a really good person to have, but it just needs to be someone that we really know doesn't want to take advantage of us. And so I think that if you have that ability to find that person out there, and then once you think you've identified, if you know somebody in your family that could help, see if that person is truly a good person for you, that would be helpful as well too.
I love that. I love that sense that you have in there of, even as we're helping people develop important life skills for living in a world that's not particularly friendly or accepting of folks with developmental and intellectual disabilities, that we're still treating adults like adults. I really love that element in there.
If I may, like I always try to tell parents that, I personally am a very social person. That's who I am as Rob Anderson. I love to be social, but my sister doesn't. And that's okay. My sister does not need to be the same as me for my parents to think that she's doing well. My sister needs to be my sister. She needs to be safe, and we want her to be safe, just like my parents want me to be safe. But she should be able to independently make decisions that best fit what her needs are, not a carbon copy of her siblings and how they want to interact with the world. So just because my parents happen to be social, I know there's a lot of times they wanted Amy to be more social, and that wasn't necessarily the best for Amy. Let her make those decisions, but teach her the importance of making sure that they're safe decisions. That's the most important thing for her.
Absolutely. We have to let everybody define success on their own terms, right? So often I have folks say to me, Jess, you are an example of an incredibly successful autistic person. And I kind of laugh at that because for me, it's so important to think about how each individual defines success. And for me, how I define success is going to be very different from maybe how other people define success as well. It looks like we have time for maybe one last question here. And someone has asked if you have any suggestions for how to teach kids with autism to drive. And I'm curious as well, because I did not learn to drive until I was 21. So I'm very curious.
Yeah, and so it's an individual choice, obviously. But I think if I can just pick that you were 21 when you wanted to start to do it, I think that we need to consider that I talk very broadly about chronological age. So like I'm 42 chronologically, right? My sister, she's 40 and a half chronologically. She's probably in a developmentally processing about 32. She's always been about that many years delayed. And it just happens to be how she's processing that information. So when we look at students and kids turning 16, they may not be ready. They may personally not feel that their development's quite there yet to do it. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to ever get a driver's license. As they get older, there's a huge chance that, and a big chance that their cognitive age increases. And so when they're 21, like you were, you felt more, the desire was still there. There was a better chance for you to be able to understand the test and to feel less anxious. And I think that gives the opportunity to think about that. So I would always recommend families to not pressure anyone at 16, but also make sure you support them later and not think that they're not ready if they're sharing with you that they are ready. And then give them the tools and the necessary assistance to be able to build upon that readiness as they get older.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I would almost argue that most kids are not ready to drive at the age of 16 developmentally. The prefrontal cortex is just not really there in terms of spatial and logical reasoning. But certainly, for me, learning how to use public transit was incredibly important. And I would say now we could certainly teach young folks with developmental and intellectual disabilities how to safely use ride shares. I think that's a really important life skill, especially for folks who live in a more urban area, to learn how to use public transit and how to use services like Uber and Lyft safely. And then, yes, eventually at 21, I was like, all right, I'm ready, I feel comfortable. I will also add that for me, it was helpful to have a driving instructor who was not my parents.
Yes.
My parents were very emotional in the car with me in a way that produced anxiety, I think, because they were anxious and worried about me, so I was anxious. But having an actual driving instructor who had, their own steering wheel and pedals in this teaching car, I think allowed me to learn in a space that was not filled with other people's anxiety. So I would add that too. It looks like we are about at our time here, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating in this conversation, and of course to Rob for sharing your expertise and all of your work with us here today as well. So thank you all, and I imagine we'll see many of you in panels throughout today.
Thanks. Take care.